such a thing as having too many tools. And I'll show you this guy at the end here. One more thing, then we'll get started. Okay. Okay, we're going to talk about handles. Handles. And handles are really a lot like, they're very much like a lot of that we do in this class in that they look really easy. I'm going to show you them, and it's going to look like they're easy, but they take a lot of, they're worth putting effort in. And if you think you know how to make handles, you're probably not going to make as good a handles as if you realize you can always get better. It is one of those things where your handles can get better and better and better if you just keep trying to do a better job at it. And there's many, many different ways to do handles. These two cups here are modeling an ideal kind of a typical functional pottery handle. This is a beautiful cup by the artist Warren Mackenzie. And I'm going to pass this around, but do recognize that we are under the law of gravity, so don't drop it. Ruby, you need to get up here. You can hear me, but you can't see me, so you need to get up here. So feel what it feels like to hold it. And I'll pass this one around. This is by Kathy Kearns, the wonderful potter, the village potter of Crockett. Feel what it feels like to hold it. Because handles are ergonomic. They're where your piece is going to relate to the human body. And handles are for everybody. So these two pieces are hand-built, and they both have handles on them. I'm going to show you how to make this kind of spiral handle here. And I'm going to, I don't know that we need to see this one, but here's a hand-built mug with a big old handle on it. And, you know, drinking cups, these are all hand-built here. I want to keep that in mind, that you in the hand-building world may be making, you may choose to make cups as well. This is actually quite an old set of cups made by a student of mine who went as far as to create a little, she built this box for them. And it feels quite nice. It has a little, what's that? So, and these are slab-built boxes. These are slab-built cups. And they're really beautifully proportioned, narrow, great drinking cups. So, these are sake or whiskey cups here. And you can see a hand-built cup has a lot of swing to it. This is one of my hand-built cups. You can see that there's a full range of possibilities, from a great deal of grace and symmetry and to kind of a wild, savage energy. All of that is possible. Okay, so those are things that don't need handles, and most of this does need handles. So what we're going to do, I just threw these on the wheel, and I threw them intentionally thin on the bottom so I wouldn't need to trim the bottom. But you still need to address this edge. So one way to do it is to rub your thumb, just kind of take a little bit of clay off and round your thumb just a little bit. All the way around. Just go and wipe that, and that helps clean it. Then this is really important. You want to just, this kind of rounded, beautiful kind of part of your hand here, you just gently tap that. Not too much, but just a little bit around. Because what you're doing is you're swelling this inward. So that if there's any kind of warpage in the firing, if it warps at all in the firing, then the result is that it'll warp inward, and so it still is stable. If you leave it flat and you fire it and it warps a little bit, it'll wobble. So this way you guarantee a stable base. So that's what's going on there. So that's how we finish these before we actually go around and Yeah,
Those cups that you are showing us, those are pulled on the wheel?
these are all on the wheel. Everything over here is hand-built, with the exception of Warren here, he got put down over there. But this is all hand-built. This is slip cast, a little different. But, so you can, and handles, you might want to put handles on, you could put handles on cups for sure, but you might put one on a bowl. You might put one on, handles often go on big vases. So this is a ubiquitous skill here. Let me show you quickly how I might work on a cup like that that doesn't need a handle. And I'm going to take a tool here, which I know I have somewhere. There it is. We'll take a loop tool. And so, pretty thin in here, but what I want to do is start by, yeah, you can see it's kind of going in. I got to be careful not to punch right through. And that makes the middle, that's the inside of the foot, and then I will cut around the outside, just eyeballing it by hand. And then I like to, when I get to just the very end, to just pull it a little bit, leave a little bit of a texture there, and I can see there's a little edge here. Take that off. And that makes a fine base for a cup. And where it's a little bit of a ragged edge here, I don't rub that, I don't touch it, I don't try to deal with it until after it dries. And then I can just take a green scrubby and just polish off that little extra flange there. And for something like that, I would sign it using a dull pencil. Just sign my initials on it. And just, that's got my initial on it. It's good to sign your work because we want to know the difference between your work and somebody else's work. We have about 75 students coming through here, and especially with throne work, a lot of it starts to look similar. So let's take a look at making a handle. So this should be enough clay. So I'm going to show you several ways of making handles. First, I'm going to show you a traditional pulled handle, which will apply to this cup here. Make this one a pulled handle cup. And this one is going to be pulled separately, not on the cup. And then I'll show you, a little later on, I'll show you how to pull a handle actually on the cup. And I'm also going to show you some beautiful hand-built techniques that lead to handles that look like this, which I rather like. So we'll show you those as well. So you've got a little bit of clay here. For a pulled handle, I do like to get a lot of clay. This is much more than I need for the actual handle, but you'll see how it works here. So first I need to make a kind of tapered, it's a little nerve-wracking here, but I think we're okay. So I think handles can be a wonderful way to sink deeply into your making process here. What I mean by that is that they are very subtle, and they take, they require a bit of attention, and like I say, you grow and you develop as you make a handle. So what I would say is just start with this. Don't expect to be making the best handles to start out with, but your handles will get better and better. I'm starting the process now. People sometimes say, It's like milking a cow. The people that say that have never milked a cow. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm keeping my hand wet, and I'm getting the clay wet, and I'm letting my hand just slide down. Just slide down and just slide down. It creates a little bit of friction, but the water keeps it flowing so it doesn't get stilted. Because what I want is a really smooth taper. I want it to taper from the top to the bottom all the way down. And this is how you get that taper. And you can see I'm turning it 90 degrees as I do this. That's because this line here and this line here are different. So if I just keep it in one direction, I'm going to get a difference front and back. But by turning it 90 degrees, I'm going to develop a more even. And you can see it's really tapering out. When I start to get the right dimension widthwise, then I'll start, it's getting close now, I'm just going to start working front and back. Because I want it thinner, but I don't need it any narrower. So see how I'm working just this way, and then I'll turn it this way, getting a nice long. And we'll get a nice long and tapered handle. And that's what I'm looking, with the handle, of this kind of classical kind, I'm looking for it going from wide to narrow. I'm looking for no interruption, no wigglies, no bumps, no gouges, nothing. I just want a nice smooth thing. And at the very end here, I might use my thumb very intentionally to create some pattern. And you can see this you can see it in Warren McKenzie's and Kathy Kern's cut. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just lay this down in the shape that I'm going to use it, and let it just kind of sit there in that shape. And I'll let that rest just give it a chance to get a little rest in. And now I'm going to show you some hand-built approaches. Then I'll show you how to attach this and how to attach handles in general. And then I'm going to show you how to pull things directly on the cup, where you put the clay on the cup and pull it right in place. A lot of artists like that. I've come to prefer that, in part because you can really see how it's going to relate size and shape-wise to the piece that you're making. So there's a handle. You can see how smooth it is.
What clay is this, Mark?
I'm using Meath here because the cups are all made out of Meath, so you want to keep the clay the same. You can get away with different clays, but if you've got the same, I would recommend it. So here, what I'm doing, let's see, let's move this out of the way here. So what I'm doing, this is really soft. I'm going to set this aside here. Here, rest. The outer edges of this clay have gotten really a little bit mushy. So I'm going to go for the inside here a little bit more, get something a little stiffer. Have you noticed how quiet it is in here now?
Oh, that motor's not
They
gonna.
fixed it.
Oh, okay.
Yes, exactly.
Very nice. You didn't even notice.
It feels so good to
It is.
not hear it. You remember the last days of that? You guys would be asking me questions and I'd have to walk up next to you and say, what? It was so hard. Okay, so I've got this clay now. And I'm just going to make a carrot as opposed to a coil. A carrot, which means basically I'm going to start with a taper. And let's see, this is going to be for this kind of handle. It's going to be a little bit spirally, so I guess I'm going to match this cup here, because this is a spiral, right? So that's going to be the cup I'm going to put it on. Put this over here. So that's a nice long taper, much longer than we need for this. And I'll show you how to figure out how long you need it. So I take, this is a sharp edge of a piece of wood, and I get that corner in there, and depending on what angle I hold it, will determine the frequency of the spiral, and I'm just going to push it in pretty deep and get a nice spiral happening. Roll it back and keep going. This looks like pastry to me. It's like a Hungarian butterhorn. It's a kind of pastry I'm going to make one time. Okay, so that's pretty good. So I could just use that in a kind of rat tail approach, this rounded handle. The handle could be completely round. Or I can take it in my hand like this and slam it down. And what that makes is a half round, much like this handle is here. So the next thing I can do is just take a little clay and roll out a coil. Could somebody bring me one of those yellow towels from the sink? Get this clay out of my hand. Thank you, Lisa. Thanks. So now I'm going to attach this handle onto this piece, but what do we need to do with this first? We need to finish that edge just like I showed you. So what we're going to do, just going to wipe these corners here all the way around. Then I'm going to take a little plate. There's a little ding in here I want to deal with. So take a little water. Just fixing a little bit there. We're going to give it a little bit of that inward curve there, and then remember, you saw me do this. I'm just going to give it a nice kind of roll around, and that'll smooth up this transition from the corner that I handled and make a really nice smooth bottom there. So that's what we're working with. And now I'm going to think about where I want this handle to be. So maybe I want the handle, I don't want it to come out too far. About there, I think. Now I can put it straight in. I can think about doing it this way and this way, where both sides curve inward. There's lots of, you can do a little finger handle, lots of choices, but for me, I want something about like this. So then I can cut this, and now I know exactly how long I need my handle to be. That's what that's for. Lay this down here, and I can select what part of this I want to use. So at the bottom, I'll cut this off. And at the top, I'll put a little bit of a curve on it, a little bit of a convex curve at the very top there. And that's good. And I can soften a little bit, just use your hand as a kind of paddle that. And next, where is it going? Well, you know, you have an opportunity here. If for some reason you dinged it sometime on the wheel, you have this one opportunity to hide that, because that's where the handle can go. This one doesn't really have a ding problem, so I don't need that, but always take a look and see if there's a place where it could benefit from hiding a little bit. Just a little bit. So I'm scoring, and I always score pretty vigorously. Hilani, do you see that, that kind of peanut butter jar with the brush sticking out of it there on my table? Bring me that. When I'm scoring, I'm gonna have one at the top and one at the bottom. So you can see I've got the top slightly below the lip, and then I wanna take a minute to really make sure I get it lined up at the bottom, because it's really easy if you're, thank you so much. Yeah, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I think we'll, you know what, we've seen these, right? Let's set all of these back here. Though, there's one more I wanna show you, for those of you who wanna be rebels, and this is a lovely Japanese artist. She was an instructor at the Koge no Mori, the Japanese Shigaraki Ceramic Cultural Center. And what she did is she threw this, really roughly threw this on the wheel, and then for her handle she just grabbed a piece of clay and went, and because she held it with her hand, it fits your hand. It looks pretty bizarre, but it works. So. But, you know, handles are always looking for, there's always a new innovation you can come up with. This I need. This is a lovely cup by an artist named Shinobu from Japan.
Porcelain?
Yeah, slip-cast porcelain in Czechoslovakia. There's an artist program where they challenge you to make designs, and then they take a look at your designs, and if they like one, they select it for mass production. So that's now in production in Czechoslovakia. The Czech Republic, I believe it's now called. So now, we take this,
And how hard should your cup be, Mark?
well, so that's a really good question. These are ideal because they're just hard enough to hold without them misforming, but they're still pretty wet. The bottom's quite wet. So that's really important because if you let them get too dry, the handles will tend to crack when they're drying out. If you so that's if you let them get too dry. What you can do is, you know, if they're too wet, you might misshape them, so you want to keep that in mind. When I'm going to put the handle on, I'm going to put quite a bit of pressure, so I have to back it up with my finger, make sure I don't crack the cup. And I'm going to push this on and really make sure it's on there well. And I'm kind of pushing a little indent with my thumb. Thank you. So like this, I'm pushing in, I'm holding on the inside to keep it from cracking the rim. And I worked at a slight angle upward because I think that looks good in the handle. And then I'm going to use, I can actually use gravity here. I'm kind of going against gravity, but I could do this upside down. I think this seems to work for me. Before I attach it, I'm really going to look down and make sure that this handle is lined up with the mug itself, that it's not off center. And then this can be just a pretty simple gesture, just to push down, and I can swipe to the right and to the left. And there it's on. The last step, of course, is to sign it. And I have these, I've talked to you about these little stamps, and for mugs I always use a stamp. So that's got a little ML. I've got another ML I can use. I'll try that one next. And so that's signed and ready. And when I'm done with it, I will store it for drying. I'll store it upside down, just like when I'm throwing bowls. Now that mug, when I look at that though, I'm going to take a moment and reconsider this because that looks like a lot of handle, doesn't it? It's way out there. You know, there's a number of reasons why. The further you get from your hand with all that liquid, it gets heavy. And the other thing is that, you know, storing it in a cabinet, you know, how much room do you actually have? So I'm going to rethink that and make it a little closer in. I still want to keep that archway, that nice arch up there. But I'm going to bring it in a little bit, just readjust a little bit. So you can do that. You have something that isn't working for you. Just do it again. You're not stuck. You can try it again. in here. And there's my signature. Can you all see that? Pretty far away, but. So that, I'm happier with that. That's a nicer kind of proportion, I think. A little closer to the handle. I get 2 fingers in easily, and that makes a nice mug. One of the rules, which I try not to violate too much, is not to fuss too much afterwards. Just get it on there and run away before you put too many marks on it. Okay, let's take a look at this one. You've now seen pretty much how we would attach this. This is going to go about the same way. So, and I'm going to show you, as I say, a few other different styles of handles. But to start with here, for this one that we've already done, I'm going to start by scoring. And then scoring here. And I'm making sure that it's lined up. And a little bit of slip. And this will use about the same length of handle, so I'm going to take my measurement here. You know, where do I want it to go? How thick do I want it to be at the top? And I want a little bit of thickness up there, so I'll take my fettling knife. And I'm just going to cut a little archway. And now I'm kind of on notice because everything I do to this is going to leave a mark. So this is really soft clay. So I want to be careful as I do this, not to leave too much, you know, not to make indentations. Again, as I put this on, I'm going to, here, I'll put this out where you can see it. I'm going to push in. I really want to get a good join there, so I'm going to really push it in. And then I use my bottom finger to kind of wipe that into the piece. And that's in there really nicely. And then I'm going to use gravity because this is a really soft piece of clay. So I'm going to turn this upside down. And gravity is my friend. Look at that. See how it makes a really nice curve? I'll lay that down there if I want. But I'm just going to look at it here to make sure that you've got a little curvy. So I want to kind of straighten that out. Make sure, again, I take a lot of time. You know, you may need to make several mugs that don't line up. And then here, I'm going to take off the extra here. I don't need that. If you make, you know, after you've made a few mugs that kind of don't quite line up, then you'll get better at paying attention. But hopefully you can skip that part. So I'm just going to wipe that down, wipe it over here, wipe it over here, and that's on. And then I might just flip it over a little bit here to get a little bit of a nice arch there. Again, it's almost too big, but I'm going to leave that one. And again, I sign it with a stamp. If you haven't made your stamps yet, it's time to get on it. Any questions so far about what you've seen? Two mugs. Let us.
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah. What you got?
I know we have an extruder that we don't use very often back there.
Uh-huh.
Do you have one for mug handles?
I think there might be a die or two for mug handles. That's a really good thing to bring up. A lot of artists will make extruded mug handles, and a lot of long-time classic studio potters will kind of look down on this. And I'll show you why. You can actually see this. I'm sure I have at least one extruded mug handle in here. Yeah. Way in the back, in the Hall of Shame. Okay, I just want you to look at these two together. And one of the things you'll notice, an extruder is like a spaghetti maker. You put clay in and you press it out through a die, and you get a long extended piece. This was an extruded handle. So feel that, and then feel this, right? And so some people say, well, you know, they want that thickness at the top, they want the taper, they want a bevel and an extrusion. But I guess you might argue, well, I can make extrusion out that's bigger than I need, and then I can thin it out. I can extrude it. So it's all possible. I know lots of artists who do extruded handles, and do beautiful extruded handles. Because the other thing is I have a friend who used to make handles that were like loops. You could just wrap it around his hand and put them on. Let's see here, extruded hand, and extruded handle and hand-pulled handle. So I'm not going to get into one is better than the other. Yeah, want to see these? Go ahead and see them. Okay. All right, both great mugs. So now I want to show you a few more things. I want to show you a variation on that spiral handle, which I really love. So the spiral handle was shown to me by Rod Geyer. Rod Geyer is an amazing potter and a great teacher who I miss. He used to teach with us. He started teaching in 1993, and he retired, I think, just about before COVID hit. And he now lives happily in Palm Springs. So he's living a good life, which is good. But I miss him. He's a great artist and a great teacher. So he showed me that spiral handle, and when I saw that, I had a thought. And my thought was, well, I think if that looks like that, if you can take it and make a spiral and put a texture on it and throw it down, you'll get a half spiral. You can make anything. Put any texture in there and still get a great handle. So that's what I started doing. So what texture would I like if I were going to do this? You know, because I find the pastry one, the Hungarian butterhorn is nice, but it's a little, for me, it's maybe a little too sweet. So this one's a little bit more assertive. What I'm doing is I'm putting in lines. I'm putting in vertical lines. Now I'm going to turn it. This is important. Turn it 90 degrees. And I'm going to put in more vertical lines. So now what I need to keep going is I need a little bit of foam, which is not there. It must be up here. I want a small foam piece if I can find it. There we go. Okay. So I put in on two sides, two 90-degree sides, I put in these vertical lines. But if I flip it one more time and do it, what's going to happen is I'm going to wipe out the ones I put in. It's going to flatten them. But with a piece of foam, it won't do that. So this is what I started thinking. Boy, I could put in these kind of beaten textures, and that would be kind of exciting. And I could make it square by turning it 90 degrees. And then there's one last step before see, here we have it, right? Now watch this. I just twist it. And because it's got corners, because I did it 90 degrees, the corners really accentuate the whole spiral pattern. And it's really quite exciting. I mean, I get excited. So now, I take this and I throw it down. And now we have a half-round handle. And I'm going to take something that has a kind of spirally, texturally quality here, and I'll get this ready for a handle. Here's that wiping thing I was talking about with your thumb. And after I do this one, so the message here is, think about whatever texture you can put on a carrot-shaped piece of clay. And then throw it down flat, and you've got yourself your own handle design, courtesy of Rod Geyer. And then I'm going to take this here. By the way, I think that's really important. When I show you something that someone showed me, I tell you who showed it to me. I want those names to be out there. And I think that's a good thing to do. I showed you the crab slab that Gary Crab showed me. So now I'm going to take a section of this for my handle. And again, I make this curved top so that when I start to press it, it gets really well joined in the middle first. And that's a nice way. I don't get, otherwise I get too much clay right at the join. Here, I'm going to look around and say, is there a place where it needs a little help? There's kind of a ding at the bottom here. That might be worth covering up. So I'm not proud. I'm going to use that. And so I'm going to score. And line it up, make sure. And then a little slip. So now, again, when I go to put, I've got to back it up with my finger on the inside, and when I go to push, I'm pushing slightly downward, because I want that handle to go up first, and then arch over. And I can use gravity as my friend. And again, I have a propensity to make them too big, so I'm going to try to make this a little bit shorter. And just press that in, and a wipe to the right, a wipe to the left, take it off the bottom. And the sign. So sometimes, in order to push a signature in, it's nice to have your finger on the inside pushing back to get a really good impression. And I'll pass this signature stamp around so you can look at it. This one of them is quite fun. There's the piece, and as I look at it, I go, well, you know, that's good, but I want it, again, I want to take a minute to kind of get it back into a shape that I'm interested in, this kind of full round. Okay. And that's a bit of a heavy handle, but that's okay. I'm a little bit heavy-handed.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
So online, I see these wooden forms for handles. Do you recommend that for beginners or?
Wooden forms?
Yeah, like they look like cutouts, and then you can rest your clay on it so you have a specific shape.
Oh, I see. So it's some kind of molding process or something. I'd have to look at it specifically to see which one you're talking about. But you know, the way to judge that is, do you like what the result looks like? And if the result satisfies you, then I think it might be a technique to explore. So now, this last thing I'm going to show you is you use a much smaller piece of clay, and you're going to make a carrot. This is the hardest one. And actually, as I look over, you guys are all busted. What are you doing over there? You can't see this. Come on down. You know, this is getting videotaped, it's going to be posted. If I call you by name, it's going to be really embarrassing, so just come on down. Yeah, you want to see this. I know, it's exciting. I'm glad you're kind of wandering it away a bit, because I know you've got work to do. Right? You want to get things done. I admire that. I think that's a good sign. But I just want you to see this last one. So this is a simple tapered piece of clay, and this is going to be a handle. I'm going to pull the handle on the pot itself. So I'm going to take a pot, and I talked to the wheel people about this shape. This is probably the shape that is most typically the mug that I make most often. It's a slightly compressed cylinder. It's a tapered cylinder, just very subtly tapered at the top. And the way I came about this is by showing all these different styles of mugs in the mug throwing demonstration year after year. I would finish them, glaze them, bring them home, and leave them in the kitchen. And my wife would always gravitate towards one. And the mug she consistently chose was this shape, and usually quite large, much taller, larger. We like a lot of coffee in the morning or tea. So that's the way she would go with it. And that's how I decided on a mug shape. I basically, what is that called in politics? What do you call that? Where they get a group of people together and show them stuff and ask them their opinions. There's a term for that.
Focus group?
Focus group. Exactly, thank you. So I have a focus group consisting of my wife, who is quite, she used to do pottery as well, so she's got game. So now I've done my scoring, put my slipping in place here. And I'm going to take this prepared piece of clay, and I have to make sure that I get a really good attachment here, because, so I'm going to attach it again, going downward a little bit. But I want to make sure it's really well attached, and that's because I'm going to pull on it. So to start with, I'm going to hold it at the angle I want it. It's a little soft. Let's see. So I'm going to start by really getting it attached here, pushing it inward. This mug might be a little soft for this because I'm feeling it kind of want to compress right in my hands. So I'm just taking a minute to get this really attached. And now I'm going to do the pulling thing. And again, if you use water, there's very little, it's not too much of a pull. And this is making your handle. Again, going around, turning it, and turning it, turning it. A little bit difficult because it's a little soft. Oh well.
So it should be soft leather hard?
It should be a little stiffer than this one. So this one is just a little too soft leather hard here, because the results are that I'm feeling it cave in a little bit where my left hand is holding it. So I'm just trying to get a nice smooth transition here and enough length. So I'm just about there, I think. I've got about the right length here. And then what I do is I take hold of it and I use gravity as my friend. It's very slippery. And I find the right proportion and I attach it. Again, line it up, attach it, pipe it 2 directions, take off the top, drop it in the water, and voila. And sign it. And I'll pass these signature stamps around. To sign it again, I want to reach my hand in, and because it's very soft down there, I don't want to punch a hole in the side. Just going to reach my hand down there. And it looks pretty good. All right. And I can just go around and check and make sure that top of the piece is well attached. It's pretty good. And it goes upside down here. So you've seen a hand building version. Well, it's all hand building. this isn't, you're not throwing anything, it's all hand building. But you've seen pulled handles and you've seen the coil that make a carrot shape and texture it. Those are all very great techniques for this. You can experiment with them. Just give yourself some time. There is a book in here, we have it in here, called Pottery Workshop, and what they say is you start with 25 cylinders, and you put 4 handles on each cylinder, north, south, east, west. And by the time you're done with that, you'll be able to make a good handle. So saying basically 100 handles before you get to be able to make one more naturally. So that's what he says. I think it's a good suggestion, though I don't know how many people actually have a chance to do that. The only thing, if you read further in Pottery Workshop, he says, and then you have these lovely cylinders with these 4 handles, and you can mix and match them and make beautiful sculptures. Well, no, you can't. You can make things that are not really great to look at. But that's my opinion. Anyway, any questions, comments, or thoughts about handles on cups? The same thing works for casseroles and for vases and for bowls or anything else you want to put a handle on. Thoughts?
What's the pros and cons of doing it that last way?
The pros that most people say, and I agree, is that you're actually putting it on the piece that it belongs on, and you're building it, and you can actually see the scale. You can work on the width, the thickness, you can work on the length, and put it on. So a lot of people like it because it's very responsive to the actual piece. You can do it the first way I showed you. The hand-built methods are also quite lovely. But I think the classic is the pulled handle, and usually pulled right on the cup. Yes?
Can you use like the oxide powders or like the, remember how for one of the bowl demonstrations you had like a colored clay? Can you do that with the handles as well?
To do what? Do you mean for decoration?
For decoration.
You can, yeah, you can decorate these just the same as anything else. If you wanted to do stains or if you wanted to do slips, all of that is available. So yeah, that's in addition to the handle. The handle doesn't influence that one way or another. So, so those are all good questions. I would really encourage you to play with this. It's really enjoyable to do it, and just give yourself the chance to grow into it. You'll get better and better and better at it. Great. Make art.